Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining in. Hope we're going to have an interesting discussion today. I'm Denis, the CEO and co-founder of Blocksquare. And yeah, I've been in the crypto space since around 2016. Started my first businesses in my early 20s. And we launched Blocksquare officially back in 2018 when RWAs were not hyped. There was nothing happening in that space. We found out the recipe of how to legally transfer value from a single real estate asset on chain. And today, Blocksquare is a company, around 30 people, working relentlessly to bring real estate value on chain. We've brought so far 200 million worth of real estate assets through around 20 marketplace partners that utilize our infrastructure. And happy to be here and having this discussion. Of course, I mean, Blocksquare is a company, like I said, we started back some time ago. And the core mission that we haven't really pivoted or too much from it or diverted from it since the very beginning is to bring real estate value on chain. And what that means is basically being able to digitize the value of a single real estate asset so that it can be fractionalized and accessed across the board by anyone who essentially has an internet connection, right? And at the time, we thought this process might be something really cool that might, over the coming years, become a major force in crypto and later on DeFi, Web3, but the internet in general, because real estate is the largest asset class in the world by far. And as such, it has so many inefficiencies and it's so darn hard to access as an investment. Most people will always know real estate or interact with it in one way or another. However, accessing it as an investment, it's very difficult. The main reason for it is because it's a lumpy investment. Usually it's not fractionalized, so you need to have a lot of capital to be able to invest in real estate. Some people will have the chance to invest in real estate as their, as an investment in their primary home, as a piece of real estate, but most people will never be able to invest into real estate beyond that first investment. And with tokenization, basically this can be unlocked. This access can be opened up to anyone, as I said, but of course this needs complex technology in the back, making it possible. It also converges with a lot of complexities on the legal side, because when you're building something like Blocksquare, you really want to build an infrastructure that is jurisdiction agnostic, that can be utilized in most places around the world in a very similar way, in a standardized way. Because if you're able to standardize how real estate value gets transferred on chain, then obviously it becomes a much easier product for people to understand and consume and get exposure to. Because then it means that whatever the real estate you are looking into investing in is always kind of structured in the same way. Just like in crypto, we have ERC20 tokens, and it's a very simple standard, but more or less people understand how that smart contract works. So standardization is a big part of what Blocksquare as well brings to the table. And essentially, we're here to provide value to other companies. So mainly we're focused on the B2B side, providing infrastructure, so technology, as well as legal frameworks for other companies who are already successful in real estate as a sector to be able to easily enter the tokenization and tokenized markets without too much technology efforts and burden. Well, uh, when it comes down to how we tokenize real estate, the core essence of any real estate asset is that it has a land registration system backing it. And most of the times, this land registration system is managed, owned, governed by a country, by a government, right? Um, and that's a single source of truth in a way that you can rely on, right? So that's where the core of the tokenization comes from, is from existing legacy systems that are in place and make real estate valuable. Now, when you transfer it on chain, you can tokenize it in different ways. How we are doing this is that for every single real estate asset, we deploy a separate token contract that is designed to tokenize a portion of the real estate asset's capital stack. So what is the capital stack of the real estate asset is a multitude of layers, but usually you have two main layers, two components. One is equity and one is debt. Debt comes by bank financing. Usually equity is basically, the simple math is the value of the asset minus the debt equals equity, right? And so you have those two slices. And when we tokenize it, we add a new slice in between that can be represented by an amount of tokens. If you tokenize the whole thing, you issue 100,000 tokens. If you tokenize 10% of it, you issue 10,000 tokens. And let's say when you do this, what you essentially are achieving is you're giving access to that asset to anyone who buys tokens. And if you buy 1,000 tokens, it means that you essentially own 1% of the real estate asset. Now, the key thing here is to understand that what is a real estate asset? It's a bundle of rights. And that land registration system that I mentioned earlier gives you that bundle of rights. It gives you the right to access it. It gives you the right to change it, to use it, to lease it out to somebody else, to resell it. And those rights, we all benefit. Every human being on earth is somehow attached to one of those rights or a combination of those, because we either rent real estate or we lease it or we use it, right? And we do that on a daily basis. Now, as you might imagine, that usage gives economic value to a real estate asset. And that economic value can be tokenized. And so what we do is we capture the economic rights that derive from the ownership of the asset, and we tokenize it and digitize it, and as such can make it transferable and accessible to anyone who has a wallet, who has a connection to the internet. So before, of course, we offer infrastructure, we offer a software as a service type of product where there's a user facing online shop, if you will. There's a back office. There's there's an administrative panel in the back, and so forth. And there's subsystems that make the whole thing work. And how we approach the market, we come to companies or companies come to us and say, hey, we want to launch a marketplace of tokenized real estate. We are very active in the real estate investment space, but we need a reliable technology partner who can help us out here. And here is where Blocksquare comes in. We're able to provide this marketplace in a very, very efficient way because it's an infrastructure that can potentially host hundreds or even thousands of these marketplaces being deployed as white label independent businesses. And each of these businesses will list their own real estate assets and that they will tokenize and make available for a curated list of investors. It might be a small group of more professional investors. It might be a more retail-oriented marketplace. That's the operator who chooses which direction to go. The reason why we've designed Blocksquare as such is because real estate as an asset class, although it's the largest one in the world, it's also very fragmented. And the fragmentation, it's not just because real estate has a physical location somewhere, but it's also because markets act differently, and the knowledge about, let's say, residential real estate in London, it's obviously you need to have that knowledge, that market expertise, and if you have it for, let's say, for London, doesn't mean that you will have the same knowledge for Berlin. It's really hard to then kind of transfer that knowledge. So we see potential for a future where there's going to be thousands of these marketplace operators who will really serve nichely on the supply side of real estate assets, a specific niche on a specific part of the world. And they will champion that market, but it's going to be hard to then apply the same process somewhere else because somewhere else, somebody else has that expertise and knowledge. But the technology can be disseminated across different markets because it's always kind of the same thing, right? You always tokenize it in the same way, but the underlying asset might be different. The underlying asset is different because it's located somewhere else. It has a different type, a different type of real estate. It might be residential, multi-residential, might be industrial, commercial real estate, retail. There's a lot of avenues of real estate that you can't really be the champion for every and each of those subtypes within the real estate asset class. So if somebody is looking into real estate tokenization out there in the audience today, just get in touch with us, blocksquare.io, schedule a call with our team. And I'm sure, if nothing else, you'll learn quite a lot through that process. But it might be as well the avenue to opening a very interesting new type of business. So Ocean Point is essentially, it's a DeFi protocol, um, and it's a set of different smart contracts that are designed to increase liquidity for tokenized real estate. Because when you tokenize a real estate asset, it doesn't mean that by creating easier access to it, you create more liquidity for it. You do create potential for more liquidity to happen on that real estate asset, but liquidity as such comes only from actual market activity, right? And market activity, when you look at DeFi markets or crypto markets, people are very used to being able to buy and sell at any moment in time, whatever amounts, right? Because that's how the crypto markets have evolved. But when it comes to real estate tokenization, you will see that there's a lot of fragmentation because these assets that are being tokenized are very small in its market cap. You're never going to see a token, a real estate token that is attached to a single asset to have a market cap of, I don't know, 500 million, right? So there lies a problem then, right? And that problem, Ocean Point solves it by aggregating the value of all these fragmented token real estate tokens around under a single wrapper. And that single wrapper acts in a way as an automated market maker of sorts, a designated buyer for tokenized real estate that buys real estate tokens from the market at slight discounts and resells them back to the market at slight premiums. And so it earns, in that spread, it earns for itself, right? And in that process, what happens with the protocol is that it basically becomes more and more over collateralized over time, which then obviously improves the risk profile of the portfolio that the protocol owns at any moment in time. So Ocean Point, in short, is kind of like a market maker for tokenized real estate. So yeah, it's Ocean Point is being designed into this decentralized protocol, right? And as such, it has obviously parameters under which it works. And these parameters are essentially um, then kind of governing whoever is using the protocol, whoever is interacting with it. If you look at larger DeFi protocols around, like Aave, for instance, for borrowing and lending, it has governance that basically takes care of or makes decisions on which assets can be used as collateral. It takes decisions on what are the interest rate models being used, et cetera, et cetera. And here it's kind of very similar. And it's the Blocksquare token that basically gives that governance power to its holders. Um, Currently, Ocean Point as this liquidity engine it's in its development phase, right? So it has certain modules that have already been launched in the past and are functioning, and there's new new improvements, not only improvements, but it's being built up from here on. And obviously, these governance models will come into place over time. Another element where Ocean Point is also helping out as a DeFi platform is a launchpad. So I mentioned earlier, Blocksquare is an infrastructure provider, and we provide the infrastructure for a fee, right? And that fee is a software license, and the software license has been tokenized under Blocksquare's token. Essentially, if you have 100,000 staked BST tokens, which is around 400,000 tokens, you can run on our infrastructure for free. And to do that, you basically need to buy and hold BST. But buying and holding a token that's volatile on the market might be risky, or it might be hard at times to access, or maybe even be too big of an investment for a company at a specific moment in time. So the Launchpad essentially brings an element of co-creation within our DAO. Members of the DAO who are BST holders can participate in deciding which project to receive access, this free access to the infrastructure to be able to use it and launch a marketplace with us. So essentially, BST is a utility token. It has different value propositions and gives this different types of access to whoever holds it to different things. Like, for instance, the launchpad that I mentioned earlier. Only BST holders could actually participate there. So it creates this environment where somebody needs to have financial exposure against the products of the DAO to be able to make decisions where the DAO goes, right? Into which direction, or be able to have a meaningful impact there. And obviously, on the other end, the DAO needs to provide incentives for the participants to actually participate, right? And here is where essentially Ocean Point has various products that serve the DAO in reaching its mission. And one of the products is essentially a very simple one-sided staking pool where if you hold BST, you can stake BST to earn BST, right? But with it, you get our governance token, which is as BST. It's the staked version of it, and it yields currently a couple percent annually. So it basically keeps up with inflation in a way, right? In general. And then you have other pools where you can provide liquidity and earn through that process for the token. So essentially what that means, you take BST plus ETH, you lock it up or you provide liquidity into Uniswap, and then you can lock up the liquidity tokens on Ocean Point to earn an additional yield on top of it, and so forth. And so that's kind of like the way where we incentivize members of the DAO to be active in different things that happen. So we mentioned earlier this main pool that gives you governance rights, and currently it earns something like 4% annually. And it's a one-sided pool. You deposit BST, you earn BST, and you receive in return the ability to impact governance within the ecosystem. So that's the most kind of baseline pool there is. Then there's other pools, like I mentioned, a liquidity pool where you can provide liquidity and earn APY for doing that. Currently, I think it's something above 25%, the returns. And then you have asset pools. This is essentially the core component, actually, of Ocean Point as such. These asset pools are we're talking here about tokenized real estate pools, tokenized real estate assets. And essentially, we offer an incentive, a very small, tiny incentive, albeit, but to property owners who would like to taste how real estate tokenization looks like without risking any exposure to any outside participant who might buy a stake in their real estate asset. This is a pool where basically we're attracting real estate owners who have never or who have just heard about real estate tokenization and want to kind of learn by doing. And that pool currently has, I think, around 3 million worth of tokenized real estate assets locked in. Then we have other pools that basically serve or are products designed for buyers of tokenized real estate. Now, when you buy into a real estate asset, however, in whatever form, tokenized or not, it has a certain return. And these returns are usually somewhere between the 5 and 10% per annum. And with these asset pools, what you're able to do is you're able to stake your real estate tokens that you own in the portfolio or a portion of it. And instead of, for that period of time, instead of earning returns, regular returns in stable coins that this real estate asset might generate, you might boost these returns by earning crypto. And essentially, you are earning BST through the process, BST rewards that come from the protocol, and at the same time, the regular earnings that you would earn from your real estate assets, you leave them to the protocol. So the protocol uses those stable coins to buy back BST and burn it, essentially creating a deflationary element to the whole ecosystem. And this real estate staking, it was something that Blocksquare introduced a while back, and now we have a couple of these pools, even marketplace operators who launch their marketplace with us can request to have a pool like this available on Ocean Point so that they can offer staking to their clients. Yeah, so we talked earlier uh, about Ocean Point and its role as this decentralized market maker for tokenized real estate in our ecosystem. At the same time, we also mentioned Ocean Point aggregating value of all these fragmented or smaller assets that might have only a couple million market caps, and aggregated them under one single digital asset. And that's where Point token comes in. It basically is the value aggregator that represents the total of real estate tokens value held and owned by Ocean Point as the protocol. So essentially, you can imagine if there's $1 million worth of real estate tokens within the protocol, there's going to be 1 million Point tokens outstanding circulating around on the market, or less. And the bigger the difference, the better for the protocol, because it's achieving over collateralization over time due to that spread mechanism that we mentioned before. On the other end, there's liquidity providing. There's LP tokens that you obtain by providing liquidity on automated market maker protocols like Uniswap, and we offer certain staking products for providing liquidity there. And then there's, besides the Blocksquare token that we mentioned earlier, there's the real estate tokens, which in our ecosystems, these are Blocksquare property tokens, or in short, BSPT tokens. And each real estate asset will have its own BSPT token contract, where up to 100,000 tokens can be issued for that real estate asset, depending on the asset's capital stack and the amount that the owner wants to tokenize. And you might have tens of thousands of these different BSPT assets around, depending on how many real estate assets would be tokenized in total. Currently, I think we're closing in on 180 or 190 different real estate properties that have been tokenized so far, which is a very tiny number. But essentially, each marketplace operator then also receives its own BSPT three-letter ticker. So you might have, on a specific marketplace, you might have XYZ as the ticker, and then there's a numerical number, a sequential number, basically, then marking each individual asset differently. So you might have BSPT, XYZ 1, 2, 3, and so forth.
I think. Hello, Joseph. Are you able to hear me? Hello, Denise. Are you able to hear me?
Hello, welcome back.
Hi, sorry I got disconnected, Denise. I mean, the Wi Fi just bugged out, so I'm very sorry
Yeah, no
for that
worries. No
inconvenience.
worries. I thought it was something like that.
Yeah, I'm very sorry for that, and I'm sorry as well
Well,
to
good.
everyone for that little pause. But once again, let us go and proceed with our next one because, like I've mentioned, the next question that we're about to ask is an extremely important topic, especially when we're dealing with tokenized RWAs, right? Like real estate and such. And I know for sure that security and reliability, it is absolutely critical for everybody else in the space. Denise, of course, with that in mind, what measures has Blocksquare implemented to ensure the security of your infrastructure, the security of your smart contracts, and the tokenized property data?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, security is important, I guess, as always. The smart contracts that we deploy, we work with our auditing partner, Haken, which is, I think, one of the leading players in the space for smart contract audits. In terms of infrastructure, we partnered with um, a reputable software development company, Medius, where the infrastructure has been initially developed and then now it's being, basically developed forward with our own technical team, engineering team. In terms of the data that we store, we securely store information encrypted and so forth. We use industry standards there. And when it comes to tokenized property data, certain things become transparent when you tokenize real estate on a public blockchain like Ethereum. But I think as well, choosing which blockchain you deploy real estate uh, or tokenized real estate on is also very important when it comes to security. Um, as people who follow the space for some time, and I've been really an advocate of, you know, Ethereum being the central hub for real world assets, is because Ethereum is currently the most proven blockchain there is, and there's a lot of L2s, L1 copies, a lot of copying of Ethereum in a way, or reusing certain components of it. But the level at which Ethereum operates is, I would say, just miles ahead of everything else. And because of it, it's the most trustworthy piece of blockchain infrastructure around. And when you deploy real world value that has real world consequences, because there might be contractual agreements around, there might be, in the case of tokenizing real estate, there might be um, security taken on a specific real estate asset, like with a charge in the land registry, to secure the claims of token holders against the asset. And when you have all this in place, you don't want to deploy this on a blockchain that has been around for just maybe a year or two and has a very high risk of chain obsolescence, which, in simple terms, what this means is there's a bunch of developers who are hyped around a specific project. There's a community who's hyped around that specific chain. Um, and then over time, they just migrate to something else and nobody uses that chain anymore. The development is not keeping the pace of other chains, and not adopting new solutions, new technologies, and that makes the chain very old and outdated. And if you have hundreds of millions or even billions of real estate deployed, tokenized and deployed on that chain, um, there are going to be real life consequences, and you don't want to get any user in that situation. So a lot of times it's better to opt for something that might cost a bit more, like Ethereum, and benefit from the security that it offers, versus basically offsetting that security element just because of um, a couple $100 lower costs on tokenizing a single asset, for instance. It doesn't make sense. So we really rely on Ethereum as our base, where all tokenized real estate is deployed.
Got that, Denise. Thank you very much. And to be honest, that is something that is very essential, right, for building trust, especially like I mentioned, whenever real world assets are involved. So I think that really brings the reassurance to our audience. Thank you, Denise, for that. Now, Denise, finally, let's look ahead at what the future holds. And I think this is a perfect way to wrap up our discussion for tonight. Now, of course, to wrap up, Denise, it would be great to hear about the direction that the project is heading to and what the community can look forward to moving forward. So, Denise, looking ahead, what are the next major milestones for Blocksquare and Ocean Point in terms of, global marketplace expansion, the adoption of tokenized real estate, and, your plan scaling forward?
Yeah, that's a good final question, I guess. To wrap up things, I think we've been together for almost an hour now. Um, but essentially, yeah, our team is always looking ahead on what to bring, which direction to go. We obviously have a roadmap that we are following, but we're as well adapting on the current market conditions and where we are. And since the fact is, bear markets do bring certain new challenges, right? Um, we are as open, we're using that time that we're in right now to start diving into something new that we haven't done so far actively. And I think that's going to bring quite a different shifting gear to Blocksquare, because so far we've mainly been focusing to really be very good at providing infrastructure and partnering with other companies as infrastructure providers. But now we started as well directly engaging with property owners who want to tokenize real estate, and place their tokenized real estate for sale on our infrastructure on Ocean Point's marketplace, so that people in DeFi can easily access that value. And why we're doing this now, we haven't done this before, is because throughout last year, we went through this regulatory sandbox that the European Commission has opened up for us. And essentially, in that sandbox, we've learned so much about how we are tokenizing real estate. And the year before, we invested quite heavily in the legal research of a new framework that allows us to tokenize real estate by placing a charge on the title of the property in the land registry. And this is huge because now you have tokens that have direct connection or direct backing, not just contractually, but as well in the land registry, um, to the real estate asset that is being tokenized. And the interesting part that we've learned is that we can tokenize in this way, and stay compliant under MiCA regulation, which is Europe's crypto regulation. And this is quite huge because the process of compliantly tokenizing under this regulatory framework is much easier than the MiFID II regulation, which regulates um, equities and debt products, so financial instruments in in Europe. And so whatever we will be doing or we are doing currently is going in the efforts in this direction, to be able to directly serve real estate owners as well, with our services and our products, not just entrepreneurs and companies that are requiring infrastructure.
Got that. Thank you so much, Denise, for, of course, telling us and giving us an insight into the future and what are the next steps of Blocksquare. That is very important for the audience to, for them to have something exciting to watch for in the upcoming months. So thank you so much, Denise, for that. And I think those are all the questions I got you for tonight's Amy. Thank you so much, Denise. But before we close, Denise, I'm going to pass the microphone back to you for some quick closing remarks to our audience. Any call to action, any message you'd like to leave them before we end?
First of all, thank you so much for organizing this, for having me here. I hope it was informative, that people enjoyed the discussion we had. Um, Thank you, Caitlin, for hosting. Um, from my end, I mean, RWA is something that everybody's aware of, that are following this space. It's something that it's not gonna go away. It's something that's gonna stay here for sure. And real estate is one of the largest. No, it is the largest asset class in the world. And I'm getting more and more people from the real estate sector who are firmly believing that real estate assets will be tokenized, and that there's maybe 3-5 years ahead of us, before everything has changed, because of this. So if you're already in real estate somehow, I think tokenization is something you should not just leave there and wait for it. There's ways of how you can, get engaged. If on the other end you are coming from a different a different sector, but you would like to operate somehow in the tokenized real estate market, I think there's huge opportunities there as well. Everything is very early. It's an early stage. There's around us a bear market, which opens up a lot of possibilities, especially with less and less noise being present and going back to fundamentals. And I think real estate is one of the assets that is fundamental to our existence here on Earth. And yeah, think about it.
Thank you so much, Denise, for that. Of course, a big thank you as well to the entire team of Blocksquare for taking the time to walk us through this vision, the technology, and even the ecosystem surrounding Ocean Point. Thank you so much, Denise, for this time. So I got, guys, of course, as we move towards the end of our today's AMA session, I think I just want to highlight one thing about our discussion. Guys, today's discussion really highlighted how blockchain infrastructure can unlock new possibilities for real estate investment, a wave to empower the entrepreneurs to launch marketplaces and connect traditional assets with DeFi. So, thank you everyone for joining this conversation. Thank you to everyone in the community who tuned in. So, of course, as always, your support, your curiosity, and engagement are what makes me cool. So if you'd like to learn more about Blocksquare and loans, follow their official channels for more updates. So thank you once again, everyone, for this fantastic session, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye bye. Thank you so much, Denise. Bye.